Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Arundhati Ramnan and these are the top headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Sensex and Nifty consolidate after hitting record highs in early trade. Mid-caps see a sharper sell-off. All sectoral indices end in the red, barring financials and IT. Block deals worth 25,000 crore rupees on Dalal Street today as promoters and foreign investors cash in on the high valuations. Vodafone PLC offloads 18% stake in Indus Tower. WAPCO Asia sells over 7% stake in ZF Commercial Vehicle Systems. Gland Pharma's Chinese promoter sells over 6% stake.
Well, you first go back to the principles and the facts, and the reality is that it was the government's case is misguided, and so we will fight it and we'll refute it in court.
US government's case is misguided and we will fight it in court, says Adobe CEO Shantanu Narayan. This comes just a day after Biden administration sued Adobe for allegedly violating consumer protection laws with hidden termination fees. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Nvidia surpasses Microsoft as the most valuable public company in the world. Shares of the semiconductor maker are up ninefold since 2023. This is the first time a company other than Apple or Microsoft has held the top spot in the last 5 years. The GST Council will meet this Saturday for the first time since Lok Sabha elections. Industry experts say that the Council may consider quashing retro tax notices for certain sectors, including online gaming. Union Ministry for Heavy Industry sets up a task force to formulate a new capital goods policy. Sources say emerging sectors like artificial intelligence, robotics likely to get a leg up. India's Internet and Mobile Association moves the Supreme Court against the government's new self-declaration portal for advertisements, warns of severe impact on the ad ecosystem. Advertising industry bodies also contemplate moving the top court. A report by the United Nations Human Rights Office says Israeli authorities are responsible for war crimes in Gaza. The report also condemns crimes against humanity by Hamas and other armed groups. At least 17 people have been killed in refugee camps in the last 24 hours, according to Hamas officials. Pyongyang rolls out the red carpet for Russian President Putin on his first North Korea trip in 24 years. Kim Jong-un says ties between the two nations are entering a period of new prosperity. Putin thanks Kim for his unwavering support on Ukraine. Straight to the market action of the day. Sensex and Nifty hit record highs in early trade, but the gains could not be sustained, with the Nifty ending in the red and Sensex ending marginally in the green. Mid-cap saw sharper cuts, but the Nifty Bank Index was an outperformer. In fact, barring financials and IT, all sectoral indices ended in the red. Sonia Shenoy is here with all of the action from Dalal Street. Sonia?
Well, today was a mixed day for the market. The Nifty ended with losses of almost about 40-odd points. It was quite a volatile day as there was profit booking in the last hour of trade. The mid-caps were under pressure as well, going home with losses of around 1%. But the star of the show in the last couple of days has been the Bank Nifty, and today was no different. The Nifty Bank hit an all-time high today, crossing that 50,000 milestone a couple of days ago and almost hitting that 52,000 milestone today as well. The laggards of the past, like HDFC Bank, have come back in full force. In fact, today as well, HDFC Bank was one of your big gainers. It's up almost 15% in the month of June, was the biggest Nifty gainer today, followed by Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, IndusInd and Kotak Mahindra Bank. On the downside, you had laggards like Titan, L&T, Hindalco that were the big losers. Bharti Airtel, BPCL, Bajaj Auto were a couple of other stocks that came under pressure. So all in all, you'd have to say, yes, a mixed bag in the market. Mid-caps were under pressure, but the Bank Nifty was the star of the show.
All right, Sonia, many thanks for those details. And speaking of the market, Dalal Street witnessed a rush of block deals worth 25,000 crore rupees today as promoters and foreign investors cash in on high valuations. Hormaz Fatakia joins us now with the details. Hormaz, a slew of block deals on Dalal Street today.
The trend has been continuing all through, as we have seen so far in this year, and today was no different. As many as 5 large block deals worth over 25,000 crore rupees took place on the street all through the day. And start off with the first one, that is Indus Towers, and that was the biggest among them all. And that is where 24% equity worth almost 20,000 crores changing hands in that transaction as well. So Indus Towers was the one where Vodafone PLC was the seller in this transaction. transaction. They mentioned that they sold 18% equity worth 15,000 crore rupees. Now they will use these proceeds to repay the lenders that they have, that Vodafone PLC has, and post this stake sale, they are now left with 3% stake in Indus Towers. Remember, they had around 21%. Now they've sold 18% in this transaction. That was a confirmation of our news break from yesterday as well. The other block deal that took place was in ZF Commercial Vehicles, where around 7.5% equity changed hands in the transaction. That was around 2,300 crores was the deal value. And there as well, the promoter, Wapco Asia, was the one that sold 7.5%. We had reported that they planned on selling close to around 5% of the equity there. And they said that they sold this stake to increase the ZF Group's flexibility for growth. Now, as of March of 2024, Wapco Asia had a 75% stake as well. The other one was in Gland Pharma. That was another one, 6% equity changing hands, close to 1,800 crores there as well. Fosun Pharma, according to sources, is likely to be the seller, which is the promoter entity. They have sold stake before as well. And as of the March quarter, they had close to 57.8% stake in Gland Pharma. So that was one of them. Sansera Engineering was the other one, 62.5 lakh shares changing hands, 750 crores was the deal value. The stock reacting positively to this transaction, ending at a record high in today's trading session. And lastly was AU Small Finance Bank, was around 2% equity, but was close to around 860 crores that changed hands. The buyers and sellers are not immediately known, but it was a slew of block deals today on Dalal Street. There are almost 25,000 crores in the bank. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was block deals galore on Dalal Street. Thank you so much for those details, Hormaz. Now, the government is working to revise the base year of inflation and gross domestic product. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that a decision is likely in the current calendar year. Prestige Estates has said it will seek approval to raise funds via qualified institutional placement during its board meet on Friday. The construction major stock fell on the news. The board will also explore monetization of assets in the hospitality segment. Remember, CNBC-TV18 had reported last week that Prestige Estates is seeking a valuation of 20,000 crore rupees through the IPO of its hospitality business. Hindustan Aeronautics will be meeting on the 26th of June to consider a final dividend payout for FY24. The company has already paid an interim dividend of 22 rupees per share, its highest in the last two years. Institutional Investor Advisory Services has opposed the reappointment of Gautam Singhania as chairman and MD of Raymond. In its note, the proxy advisory firm called for both Singhania and his estranged wife, Nawaz Modi, to be removed from their positions on the board until their divorce proceedings are resolved. The body also raised concerns about Singhania's proposed remuneration, deeming it excessive for the size of the business. But the big newsmaker this evening, a day after U.S. government filed a lawsuit against Adobe, the company's chairman and CEO Shantanu Narain spoke exclusively to CNBC-TV18. He termed the U.S. government's case as misguided and promised to fight it in court. The Biden administration sued Adobe for allegedly violating consumer protection laws with hidden termination fees. Adobe has denied all the charges. Speaking to Shireen Bhan at the Adobe headquarters, Narain said that the world has entered the era of artificial intelligence and acknowledged that it will be disruptive, while also adding that AI can be a massive enabler and tailwind. After a backlash, Adobe has clarified that it will not train its AI models from user content. Take a look.
The latest challenge that you're up against is the US government looking at whether, again, there is a violation of policy and whether there are sort of fees that are being collected without consent or, explicit consent and so on and so forth. I mean, how do you deal with something like that?
Well, you first go back to the principles and the facts, and the reality is that it was the government's case is misguided, and so we will fight it and we'll refute it in court. I think if you take a step back and you think about what Adobe has pioneered, the subscription economy and the digital economy is everywhere. I think when I try and read your content, it's probably going to be available through a paywall as a subscription.
Yeah.
We have open and flexible policies where some people can pay for it up front and get a discount, and others pay for it on a month-to-month. So having flexibility makes sense. But, it's something that we will address, but we certainly believe that we have been flexible. We offer customer choice, and we're completely transparent about this. When you subscribe to the plan, it says annual bill monthly. And it's an annual plan. And so, but at the end of the day, for us, what really motivates us is the fact that we're impacting and innovating. And I think if people didn't feel like we were innovating, they wouldn't be subscribing to our services. And that's what we have to keep focusing on. Well, first, I'm really proud of what our team has done. When you think about the content authenticity initiative, something that we pioneered, over 3,000 companies have now signed up with it. While people understand that AI has all this power, I think it's fair to say there's some heightened sensitivity around what does this mean to me? And so, that I wouldn't call it trust deficit as much as questions about what that is. And a company like Adobe has a leadership role that we need to play, not just for ourselves with our customers, but for the industry at large about our terms of use. I think there were some questions, and legally everybody who looked at that understood that the content belongs to them. We're not training our models based on that. But I think perhaps in English we could have done a simpler job of clarifying it. So, which we have. And so, we've rolled it out. We are creator friendly. I think the product innovation that we're delivering, Shireen, it always, warms your heart when you look at the amount of innovation that we're delivering. And I think we've talked about this in the past. AI is going to be this incredibly enabling technology that allows us to, target a broader set of customers. And so I guess it's the era of AI. Now we can create campaigns, we can create content, we can address the content supply chain. So I'm completely convinced that AI, while I acknowledge it'll be disruptive, at the end of the day, it's going to be a massive enabler and a tailwind.
Meanwhile, tech giant Nvidia is now the world's most valuable company, beating Microsoft and Apple. Nvidia's $3.34 trillion market cap is nearly double of what it was at the start of 2024. The company had crossed the $1 trillion threshold last June. This is the first time a company other than Apple or Microsoft has held the top spot in the last 5 years. Here's interesting trivia. Only 6 nations in the world have a GDP higher than Nvidia's market cap. These are USA, China, Germany, Japan, India, and the United Kingdom. Here is Adobe Shantanu Narayan on Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang's meteoric rise of the company.
This is the shock and awe story of the last several years, what's gone on with Nvidia. I mean, what do you make of the kind of rise that we've seen of Nvidia?
Well, Jensen's a, absolute legend in the industry, and having known him for decades and considering him a friend, what I would say is that his ruthless, single-minded, drive to continue to deliver innovation. I mean, he has this vision of what he wanted to do with autonomous cars, and so I think this is not a one-hit wonder for Nvidia. I think it's decades of consistently looking around the corner and executing against it. So I could not be more happy for him.
And you can catch the entire conversation with Shantanu Narayan at 7:30 and 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. Boeing's Chief Executive Officer Dave Calhoun faced sharp criticism in a Senate hearing, his first public appearance before Congress since taking over the top job at Boeing. In early 2020, in the hearing that went on for 2 hours, the Senate questioned Calhoun on the company's manufacturing shortcomings, accusing him of putting profit ahead of safety. Calhoun revealed that he hasn't directly spoken to any of the whistleblowers yet. The senator has also slammed the Boeing CEO for giving just 1% wage increase for its workers over 8 years.
You said you've listened to the whistleblowers. Have you directly spoken to any of the whistleblowers?
I have not directly spoken to any of the whistleblowers.
Do you think that'd be a good idea to do that?
Yeah, I think it would.
I'd recommend it.
Yep.
You've got 32,000 machinists. These are American workers who work for you. These are Boeing employees in the Pacific Northwest. You're in contract negotiations with them right now. 32,000, that's a lot of them. The last time that they got a contract was 16 years ago. Do you remember the terms of that contract?
I don't. It was a very long contract.
Yeah, well, they got 1% wage increases over 8 years. 1% over 8 years. You got a 45% increase just last year, and you're making $33 million. Do you think maybe these folks deserve a raise?
Oh, they will definitely get a raise.
Good. Good.
And back home, the GST Council will meet this Saturday for the first time since Lok Sabha elections. Industry sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the council may consider quashing retro tax notices for certain sectors, including online gaming. Timsi Jaipuria is here with the exclusive details. Timsi, what are you picking up?
The GST Council is likely to get a breather for the industry where sectors which paid GST at lower rate versus that applied by GST authorities that are likely to get relief from the retrospective action. GST Council may consider a proposal to not to levy higher GST when lower rate was paid by the industry, and that was a general practice that the industry was carrying out and not just one particular company per se. So GST Council may consider Law Commission's proposal to offer companies relief from the retrospective action for lower tax payout. Council is likely to consider not raising retrospective demands where industry paid lower GST rate in absence of clarity or where the rate was not specifically mentioned in black and white. Also, the amendment to the GST law is likely to not to allow refund of GST or cess arising in cases where higher demands of GST were paid, and now with this amendment there could be a lower rate. So over there no refunds are going to get done, and the amended law is likely, what experts say, could benefit sectors like online gaming, insurance, when it comes to other sectors like foreign shipping lines, foreign airlines, insurance company, etc. So there are many sectors who are likely to get the benefit of this. Just to lay down the procedure, Council is going to introduce Section 11A in the GST laws, which is likely to address this issue. And this is similar to what was Section 11C in the pre-GST regime in the central excise laws. So just replicating that law to be exercised as and when sector-specific the council or the government feels that they would need to bring in amendment so that retrospective cases can be settled. So it is going to ease a lot of litigation, is what experts say.
Right, Timsy. Many thanks for those details. Meanwhile, the Heavy Industries Ministry has set up a task force to formulate a new capital goods policy. Sources have said that emerging sectors like artificial intelligence, robotics are likely to get a leg up. Parikshit Luthra joins us now with the details. Parikshit, what are your sources telling you?
One of the first decisions taken by the NDA 3.0 government was to begin work on a new capital goods policy. Sources say the Ministry of Heavy Industries has formed a task force to work towards a National Capital Goods Policy 2025. This task force is headed by Secretary Heavy Industries and has 17 industry bodies and 15 ministries as members. One of the key objectives is to review the shortcomings in the Capital Goods Policy 2016 and work towards a framework that can make India a global champion in capital goods. The government is considering ways to include new and emerging areas in manufacturing like automation, robotics, AI and Internet of Things. One of the key priorities is to promote export-led growth and reduce import dependence, and also focus on niche technologies and high-end technologies in India. Industry sources say India needs a new outcome-oriented capital goods policy, as the earlier one has not been effective in demand generation and promoting exports. CNBC-TV18 has learned that industry bodies have recommended a new policy which puts emphasis on machinery used in energy transition, as energy transition is a $120 trillion opportunity. The industry also wants clarity on how the 1 lakh crore R&D corpus announced in the budget will be utilized for the capital goods industry. The industry has told the government that while the current share of capital goods in India's manufacturing is 12%, there is a strong potential to take it to 25%, and a focus on capital goods can increase India's manufacturing GDP overall, also exports. We would like to reduce heavy imports of capital goods or machinery used in manufacturing and become a key exporter. Currently, China is the largest exporter of capital goods, followed by Germany, US, Italy and Hong Kong.
All right, many thanks for those details, Parikshit. On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up, North Korea rolls out the red carpet for Russian President Putin, who is visiting the country after 24 years. Details when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still with us on Business 360. A quick look at the national headlines. 15 people have reportedly died of heat stroke in Delhi NCR in the past 72 hours. While 5 of the victims were from Delhi, the remaining 10 were from Noida. The Indian Meteorological Department has forecast some reprieve from the heat tomorrow and day after. New Delhi continues to face a severe water shortage amid the scorching heat, forcing residents to stand in long queues to get water from tankers. Delhi's Water Minister Atishi has alleged that the Haryana government has refused to release water to Delhi despite multiple requests. Urging Prime Minister Modi to intervene, Atishi warned that she will sit on an indefinite fast from 21st of June if the issue remains unresolved.
हरियाणा सरकार दिल्ली वालों पर और दिल्ली वालों की जो परिस्थिति है, दिल्ली वालों का जो कष्ट है, उस पर मुझे लगता है हरियाणा सरकार को एक अपना 1.5% पानी देना चाहिए। हमने प्रधानमंत्री से अनुरोध किया है। मैं उम्मीद करती हूं कि प्रधानमंत्री जी भी इसमें कुछ करेंगे और अगर नहीं कर पाए तो फिर फ्राइडे से मैं अनशन पर बैठूंगी।
Meanwhile, Mumbai residents woke up to cloudy skies and heavy rains this morning. The Met Department has issued a yellow alert for today and tomorrow. The IMD has also issued a yellow alert for the neighbouring districts of Raigad and Ratnagiri till June 23rd. However, on a pan-India basis, the Met Department is anticipating below normal rainfall this month. Heavy rainfall in Assam, along with a rise in water levels in the Brahmaputra River, has led to floods and landslides in the state. Over 150,000 people across 15 districts have been impacted. According to the State Disaster Management Authority, at least 30 people have been killed. Karimganj district has been their worst affected. Former U.S. Congress Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other members of an American delegation met the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala today. China, which considers the Tibetan spiritual leader a dangerous separatist, has protested against the visit. Pelosi's visit comes after the U.S. House of Representatives voted in favor of a bill to push China to hold talks with Tibetan leaders and resolve the long-standing dispute.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with his message of knowledge and tradition and compassion and purity of soul and love, he will live a long time and his legacy will live forever. But to you, President of China, you'll be gone and nobody will give you credit for anything.
A report by the United Nations Human Rights Office has said that Israeli authorities are responsible for war crimes in Gaza. The report has also condemned crimes against humanity by Hamas and other armed groups. At least 17 people have been killed in refugee camps in the last 24 hours, according to Hamas officials. Red carpet, red roses, honor guards, and a massive crowd cheering Russian President Putin was greeted with a lavish welcome in Pyongyang on his first visit to North Korea in 24 years. The visit, emblematic of the deepening ties between Putin and Kim Jong-un, comes at a time when both are facing sanctions from Western democracies. One-on-one talks between the two leaders lasted for 2 hours. The countries have signed a comprehensive strategic partnership pact, which is set to include cooperation in healthcare, education, and science. Putin says the pact also has a provision of mutual assistance in the event of aggression against either of the nations. Kim Jong-un has pledged full support and solidarity for Russia's war with Ukraine. Putin thanked Kim for his support in their fight against the imperialist policy of the United States.
We highly appreciate your consistent and unwavering support for Russian policy, including the Ukrainian strand. I am referring to our fight against the hegemonic policy imposed for decades, the imperialist policy of the United States and its satellites against the Russian Federation.
India's Internet and Mobile Association has moved the Supreme Court against the government's new self-declaration portal for digital advertisements. This move comes a day after the government's self-certification portal went live following a Supreme Court order. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with all of those details. Ashmit, take us through what the association has told the court.
Well, let's begin with some context. It was on the May of 7th that while hearing the misleading advertisements case, specifically in the Patanjali matter, the Apex Court had passed directions that all advertisers need to submit their undertakings before a government portal. Now, it is following that direction that the MIB, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, had brought out its portal where self-declarations will have to be submitted by all advertisers, and that is what sparked concern. That portal went live yesterday. We understand that the industry has expressed a great deal of concern on how this can be implemented. In response to that, we find that at least one industry association, which is IAMAI, has already moved the apex court. The idea is to sensitize the court to the complexities of the impracticalities that may be involved in implementing such a mechanism, such a portal. Not just that, we understand that there are various other industry associations, such as the Indian Society of Advertisers, that are also contemplating similar action. Now, why this action? Why knocking on the doors of the apex court? Well, the concerns that various industry bodies have highlighted is that, one, this could be impractical. There were as many as 40 crore ads published in 2023. If there's a declaration required for every advertisement to be put out, that will put humongous strain on the MIB portal, that the MIB simply does not have the bandwidth. There were also questions asked as to whether this would lead to an increase in compliance burden, how that would unduly impact startups as well as small companies, how this could severely impact the ad economy, especially as far as the digital space is concerned, that this will come as a shock to the digital ad industry, and that there is a need to sensitize the court towards the difficulties being faced by the industry. This hearing, we understand, is due to happen in July of this year.
All right, Ashmit, many thanks for those details. Now, moving on, India has a long distance to cover in terms of helicopter penetration. That's the word coming in from Sunny Guglani, the head of Airbus Helicopters in South Asia. Speaking to my colleague Madiha Mujawar, during the launch of its H-145 helicopter, Guglani urged governments to use helicopters as a tool for nation building. Citing examples of North America and Western Europe, he said India must open new segments for helicopters like emergency health services, law enforcement and disaster management. Speaking about the company's partnership with the Tata Group to make the H-125 helicopter in India, Guglani said they aim to roll out the first helicopter from the India facility in 2026. Take a look.
270 helicopters on the civil and parapublic side in a country like India, it's very low. Oil and gas has always been our focus area. It will, of course, we will continue to keep focusing on it. Commercial air transportation, right? So charter operations, it's another big market. If you look at the new segments, heli ambulances, so we call it HEMS, helicopter emergency medical services. Yeah. That's a sector that we are really trying to work with the government and with the various stakeholders in the state governments as well to develop that.
And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Business 360. But as we go, here's a quick note. A daily wrap of the top headlines will hit your inbox every day before you call it a night. CNBC TV 18's daily newsletter on LinkedIn.